I had to realize that the common denominator in all of these situations was ding, 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 me. I've ignored red flags, smelled the smoke, and still walked right into the fire. If you've done the same, you're in the right place. Let's get started. So for years, I kept asking myself, why do I keep attracting these type of guys after years of one bad relationship after another? And I thought that if I just could spot better, if I could see them coming, that I could finally solve the problem, I could crack the code. I thought that the problem was learning to identify these unhealthy people faster. So I would watch YouTube, I would listen to things, read books. I mentioned that before, thinking if only I could get better at spotting red flags earlier on, if I could just develop more discernment about these things, I could avoid these unhealthy men and I could finally find the good guy. Or the good guy would be attracted to me. We would be in love and get married and have kids and everything would be perfect. That's what I was thinking. Let me just learn more about men that will solve all of my problems. And I also, deep down, I thought that men just didn't like me. Let me explain more about that. I didn't have my first boyfriend until I was in college. I was 22, I think, when I met my first boyfriend. Before that, I had a guy here or there express interest, but I was weird. When I was a teenager, I was weird about it. Like I didn't know how to handle it. Like looking back, I wouldn't be surprised if I was probably avoidant at that time. But yeah, it was just weird. A guy would express interest and I would freeze, didn't know what to say, that kind of thing. And I briefly was seeing somebody before my first boyfriend. But again, first, will you be my girlfriend didn't happen until I was in college. So I had just started to assume that men didn't like me. They liked me as a friend. I always had a big sense of humor. They weren't wanting to be my boyfriend. So I just thought that men didn't really like me. And one of the most freeing things that I learned is it wasn't that men didn't like me. It was that I didn't like the men that I was settling for. So Susan told me, it's not that men don't like you, you don't like them. And I was like, what are you talking about? I could not understand. I said, how would that make sense? And again, ABBA hit me after one of our sessions and light bulb moment. And I realized, oh my gosh, I get it now. When you don't like someone, they feel that energy and they'll push back against it. And so it comes across like they don't like you, but you started it. You didn't like them. And again, that's this whole episode with that, because I think a lot of people have that confusion in many different areas. It's actually you that doesn't like people or men, whatever, and you're the one pushing them away. So I just thought I couldn't attract a good man. I assumed I had to work with what I had. It's like, okay, because when you're a tenacious person, you're gonna get in there. You're gonna work with what you have. You get creative. Let me figure it out. Let me work with you. That was my mindset. So I didn't even realize I was settling, but I was. I didn't even enjoy being with them. When I really thought about it after I healed, I realized I didn't even like that dude. I don't like men who this. I don't like men who that. But yet I was sitting there and wondering why we're arguing. And I realized it was because they could feel that I didn't like them. So now their insecurities are activated and we're just dancing round and round. That's how it was going. And I was confusing them being available to me as compatibility. Oh, no, no, no. That was very wrong. And I also realized that an emotionally healthy man is generally, usually attracted most to an emotionally healthy woman. I didn't realize that I was not emotionally healthy. I was too busy saying this guy did this or that guy did that. And I was right in my observations, but I wasn't taking a long, hard look at myself. I was lacking emotional control. And what I realized is this whole saying about how like attracts like did indeed apply to me. Because think about it, emotional control, it comes in different shapes and sizes. So for example, anger, that's a lack of emotional control, right? So if you lack emotional control, you lack the ability to go after what's right for you. Be honest with yourself. How's it any different from somebody who loses emotional control and gets angry? So I realized, hello, like is attracting like, and that I was no better and I was no different than somebody with an anger problem. Okay? Or somebody with an addiction problem. I was no different. So they were lacking emotional control. And here comes Rebecca. Here she comes. She's lacking emotional control. There were different behaviors, but they were rooted in the same truth. I was lacking the ability to govern myself, and they were lacking the ability to govern themselves. I did a TikTok years ago now when I was on a TikTok ticking and talking about one of the guys, our very first argument. He told me that if I was a man, he would have punched me in my face. That's a story for another time, okay? That's a story for another time. And I didn't realize how bad that was until I was out of the relationship, which he came to break up with me, by the way. He came to break up with me, okay? I didn't dump him. Okay. Anyway, my sister is the one who had to tell me. He said, what? Because when he said this, I was more concerned that he was going to leave. And so the insecure attachment, the fear of abandonment all came up, and I'm just trying to patch it up and make sure he doesn't leave. So again, that's a story for another time, but that's an example of a lack of emotional control that he was having, but I'm no different and I'm no better because I had a lack of emotional control to say, hey, I don't like the way I'm being treated. Get out. Huh. Honey, I didn't know any better that I was equally as sick, and I just wasn't able to walk away. So there's not any difference between emotions that we view as toxic, like anger, and a lack of emotional control, which is toxic. I had to realize that the common denominator in all of these situations was ding, 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 me. I was the common denominator. It wasn't the men. I was the problem. I just kept meeting the same kind of guy in different packages. The situations might change, but I didn't change. So I had to come to the realization that things weren't going to change until I changed. So the poor boundaries, the scarcity mindset, ignoring my God-given instincts, betraying my own self, this fear of walking away, all of this had to change. After I underwent a lot of healing, I had a realization that I could have just laid down and said, Lord, take me now. That's it. That's it. I'm finished. Just go on and take me now. I could have done that, or I could have done what I knew how to do, and I knew how to fight. I am the daughter of a Jamaican woman. I knew how to fight. She always taught me how to fight. You don't just lay down and take whatever. You're feeling depressed, get up and take a shower. Get up and take a walk. I am a resilient person. So I knew I can either lay down and feel sorry for myself, or I can be hopeful that I can turn this situation around with the help of Abba. I realized that if I learned these behaviors, these toxic ways of thinking, I learned that I can unlearn it with some grit and some Jesus and some therapy, okay? And I did. I learned that I can develop healthy boundaries, that even though it might feel uncomfortable today, if I keep at it, I'll get to a point where I can lay down a boundary, honey. Somebody can be upset with me about it, and I could think, that's interesting, your loss, not mine, and I could still sleep just fine at night. If somebody had told me that 10 years ago, I would have said it will never happen. Well, look at me now. Look at me now. I learned that I can develop discernment, and I did. And I also learned that emotional maturity was within my grasp. Emotional toughness and emotional maturity were within my grasp. And I think something that's really interesting about that I realize is all these bad situations that caused me a lot of pain, it also developed a lot of strength in me, because every time I would get back up, I was stronger and stronger. The grit that I had just was reinforced. And I realized that I could put all that into positive things rather than just having to fight my way through life by changing what came natural to me. I knew that, well, Susan was the one who had to tell me this. She told me that I could have a healthy relationship one day. I couldn't see it, but she told me, Rebecca, if you are to follow the things that I'm telling you, your dreams will come true. And she was absolutely correct that once I changed my mindset, my life changed. I had to declare that even though I was the common denominator, that my identity was not the patterns. Patterns can change. I could change, and therefore my life could change for the better one day, and I could be making better decisions and having healthier relationships. If today's episode encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.